States, because any gas and oil that's produced in this country goes into the European market. So it's spread, any benefits are spread across the whole of the continent, not just in the UK market, and therefore the predictions are have a minimal effect on gas prices for anybody, let alone people in fuel poverty. Also, you present a slightly tangled view of the changes to the English planning system. You're right to say that the Localism Act in theory gives local people greater rights to make local decisions, but counterbalancing that completely in the opposite way is the fact that the guidance is for issues surrounding shale gas to be fast-tracked through completely avoiding any local feedback on the issue.
I'll come back on that one.
Yeah. And finally, you talked about 100% renewables being a long time away. Denmark has got a plan in place that they're several years into it, a 30-year plan to have the entire economy, not just energy supply, but transport and everything, completely 100% renewable within the 30-year time span. So we could have it in less than 30 years from today if we had the right decisions for it. And the only thing that's going to put it a long way in the distance is the continued intransigence of the government to get to grips with it.
Okay, can I just come, I'm not going to argue the last point with you because Denmark and Britain are very different and one person's word on this is as good as another. But on the point of planning, I thought I made it quite plain that one of the things that is happening with shale gas specifically is that new guidelines are being introduced, and they're not going to just be about saying, let's get this through quickly. The reverse is about making sure that safety considerations are properly taken into account. That's all I can say at the moment. Obviously I haven't seen them, but that's the categoric guarantee that you've had from
that's the spin that we're getting from the Tories and Westminster.
That's big, that the stuff is fact.
Because what they're saying is they're essentially saying they don't trust the local people to make those decisions when it comes to shale gas, so therefore we'll take it away from you to make those decisions instead.
No, I think we're talking about different things here. So when it comes to local objections, we're talking about the weight that's given to the local voice at the moment is pretty much dismissed, as I dare say we've all had that experience, well done by the way. The guidelines is to make it clearer what hoops shale gas interest developers have to jump through before they even get anywhere near the stage where objections can be made.
It will also presumably be difficult to have a policy on shale gas that is different to the one that Pickles announced on wind turbines 6 months ago, where he was making it easier for local communities to object to them.
Well, I think that's quite consistent, isn't it? Because you can only object on planning grounds, can't you? So it's important to know what the planning grounds actually are before you start. And that's where the toughness comes in, I think.
Anybody else? Lady at the back.
My name is Chris Quillen, I'm just a local resident. I think my main concern is just listening to this kind of a debate and the possibility of having a source of energy coming into the equation. Just, you were talking about taking the eye off the ball. The eye is always taken off the ball of climate change. And that can just be shelved a bit further, because we're talking about delayed gratification. We won't necessarily have to deal with the consequences. We need to answer to an electorate now. So it is always put the actual global needs are not put at the forefront. And that is, maybe that's real politics, I don't know, but just as an ordinary member of, a global community, I know I'm not living in Bangladesh. I'm not going to be the first person who's going to be devastated by climate change. And we're sitting here talking about how could we keep our nice cosy eyes ticking along, and we're not seeing the broader picture, and it's always shelved and put somewhere in the future. And I think we're all responsible, the politicians in particular.
May I just ask that you take a question from young Jack there in the green, because he was putting his hand up and down when Gareth was on,
fault.
and he's got to clear up this mess, his generation.
I'm Jack Bridger, I live in London. Those in support of unconventional unconventional gas extraction, I like to point to America as sort of the golden egg. But as we know, obviously, America is very different from this country and Wales in particular. They like to point to well, safety, which isn't in America, but America is very sparsely populated, and a lot of the drilling rigs are located far away from towns, maybe in the deserts, but that's not the case in Wales, and as you hear, many of the licences were granted for South Wales, which is the most densely populated part of the country. So we're looking at the prospect of having rigs maybe a few hundred metres from residential locations. So the issue there is you just can't compare the two when talking about fracking.
And that's one of the reasons why we're a bit more sceptical this side of the Severn Bridge when it comes to the Welsh Conservatives, because I mean, there are perhaps slightly better examples in Australia of safer fracking, if you like, than in America. But actually, we think that the picture is incomplete, and we want time to have a look at this properly. So, you know, we're on the same sort of page here about why we're a bit worried.
Anyone else?
Can I just ask a question about the local authority planning regulations? Because one of the things that's puzzled me, and which I think is very unfair, you know, at the moment, my name's Jean White, and I live in Petalba, actually. I'm at the top of the Young Valley there, and not very far away from some of those skulls that we saw on the slide earlier on. It's a coal mining area, and very concerned really about these developments and potential for them. But one of the things that bothers me is if the onus for checking, because if you've got the regulations in place, they're not doing any good unless somebody's actually checking with any activity that's going on, that they are sticking to the regulations. And that's going to be really difficult, because if they're going on underground, they're not going to be that easy to see whether they're using the right, you know, combinations of chemicals and all the rest of it. But isn't that also then placing a huge burden on the local authority? Because at the moment, local authorities are in a terrible state, and in East Petalba at the moment, we're having another round of cutbacks in our local library services. So it makes me really cross, actually, that it's the companies that think they're going to come in and, you know, they're going to make the profits. They're private companies. It's not that it's us as a nation who are doing this for ourselves. They're private companies, and they're going to come in and they think they're going to make profits, otherwise they wouldn't come in. And my local authority are going to be running around checking on whether they do what they've been told to do. And it just doesn't seem right to me. The company should bear the cost of all this, and they should bear the burden of it. They should bear the cost of all the exploration and testing that has to be done before they move in, you know, the recommendations that have come out from numerous inquiries that have gone on recently. And I never see anything written down anywhere that is what is going to happen.
Oh, right. I think it's a very important subject here, which is that of enforcement. And it's something that Gareth alluded to very briefly, and he mentioned National Natural Resources Wales, which is a fairly new body that incorporates, amongst others, the Old Environment Agency. And the responsibility for monitoring and policing, if you like, even now, power stations, for example, that might be putting out emissions that are above what they're licensed to put out, is a matter for them. But I think he did raise the point that does even this new body have the expertise to accurately police what is, for us in Wales anyway, a new piece of technology. And perhaps that's another reason why a little bit more delay needs to be built into this enthusiasm, to see what kind of level of expertise is actually out there. It's not quite so it's a burden on the local authority. You would like to think that they're responsible for enforcing all planning conditions, which I think generically across all councils is always a bit of a problem. But for something of this status and nature, it would be this new body that would be responsible.
Can I just add a point to the young guy's point over there, which was actually an excellent point, and thank you for making it. The close proximity to residencies is one that particularly troubled us as well, that there is an all-night flare from each of these sites that shines all night. The proposal for application was for 24-hour trucks up and down with water. so that you've got the constant noise, and the light situation, that has to have illumination of some point, which if it's coming off a mountain area to the residences immediately below, comes straight in at the residence level. And the peripheral point that nobody seems to pick up in is on fracking and shale gas extraction, these chemicals are used. And if this is to be on our mountain areas, which are difficult to access, the incidences of fires on the mountains in the summer is excessive. This is close to communities, you're storing chemicals, and we have not got, we've usually got part-time fire services that take up to 2 hours to get to one of these sites that are ablaze on the mountain. So there are outside considerations that really need to be thought about before you go ahead with this. And none of them seem to be getting any airspace or any discussion, which are really, really essential for those close communities, which are intensely populated.
Well, the points you make reinforce the position that we would take, is that new guidance is needed specifically for this. We can't just keep relying on old planning guidance that goes back several years now. I can't remember how far back it goes. But it's out of date. When it was drafted, it didn't conceive that this kind of work would be going on. So we definitely need the update on that. And those are points that bizarrely can all be dealt with by planning guidance as it goes. So it's a perfect opportunity as far as I'm concerned.
I think we've got to go shortly.
I can sneak one more in quickly, but I can run out if you have to.
Go on,
I was just going to ask this. 2 years ago, do you remember someone just got involved in trying to get PVs on household roofs, PV panels, solar panels, and there was the feed-in tariff mechanism, which was a way of helping to pay for a community sector to purchase the panels for the members of